Gather round. It's time for your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. Listen closely as your coaches discuss the culture, the economy, and the political scene, and how it affects your home and your real estate investments. Real Estate Chalk Talk is where you learn the science of buying and selling real estate and the art of living in your home. Your education begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey there, welcome to the program. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group, hittnergroup.com, Hittner Group.com, 612-627-8000. That's 612-627-8000. And we are in the first week of October.
Crazy, isn't it?
Unbelievable?
Yeah.
Unreal. So this year has gone by so fast. And what a eventful year we've had so far in the regular markets and in the real estate markets. We got storms and hurricanes and union strikes. The docks all shut down and the ships are piling up out in the ocean. Got Eric Everson on the show from Action Moving. We're going to hear about all the moving stuff that's sitting out now in the ocean, getting moldy. Waiting to come ashore or go to foreign parts. And we've got the real estate market, which is recovering. I don't know if recovering is probably not the right word.
What do you mean by
I mean balancing.
Balancing.
It's balancing out.
Yeah.
I think to me, it's like a fully balanced market. There's the offers that we see coming in right now. There's give and take on both sides. There's conversation. It isn't just like, here's the offer. And it isn't like the sellers now saying, folding their arms saying, we want more, and
right.
Getting it.
I haven't seen any highest and best.
No highest and best this week.
No, I haven't seen that for a little bit now.
Nope, it's more like glad we got ones.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got an offer. Let's work with the one that we have.
Yeah.
So lots of conversation about that and about those offers.
Are you seeing activity slow a little bit right now or not? Because on our side, we just came off of the two great months, right? Last month was the best month we've had in a couple years, but now our applications have been down last month, and come this month, it's just like, just seems like it's slowed a little bit.
It's slowed, I would say, more than a little bit.
Okay. So it's not just me.
No, it isn't just you. So I believe that you shouldn't cheat your customers. So I go out there and I actually do the work. So I'm out there. We're holding open houses Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday morning, Sunday, because we don't have the showings. There's just no showing activity. I check with the front desk. There's just no showing activity. So it's like, well, I know that there's people that want to move out there.
Yeah.
And they maybe are trying to have conversations with agents and are not, ready to go forward. But that doesn't mean they don't want to look. So I was in on Wednesday. Drive time show. I like drive time open houses, Keith. I've kind of gotten hooked on them.
How did it go?
It's almost like new construction again. So you show up, you go to the open house at 4:00.
Where do you go? 4 to 6?
4 to 6.
7?
4 to 6.
4 to 6.
Yeah, 7's too late. 4 to 6.
Okay.
Just catch the people as they're coming home. Make sure that you advertise it and publish it so that people know that you're there. Get your signs out early so that they can see the signs and come in. And we had 4 groups through last night, and that I was there for an hour and a half. 4 groups through.
What property were you at?
In Woodbury.
In Woodbury. Okay.
At Willow and Woodbury, and exactly the people that I wanted. I mean, those are the right buyers for that house. All 4 of them, really good, and an offer from one of them came in that night.
Really?
So it's like they see the house. Yep, we're kind of talking. One had their house on the market in St. Paul, but they came in no agent. They have an agent, but just came into the open house because that's how people are. Then they run out and they call their agent.
Yeah, that's fine.
And that's super. To me, that's a showing. So I had 4 showings yesterday. I hadn't had 4 showings the whole week. So I had 4 showings on that property. Yep. Did the same thing with a house in Eagan last weekend. Held it open on Saturday afternoon or Sunday after the football game. Same deal. Hold it open late in the afternoon. Get some people coming back from wherever they were enjoying the football game. Had people through there. Great offer comes through. So it's like, those are showings to me, like better than a scheduled showing because now people are in there. I have a chance to chat with them.
You said you had some deals fall apart. What's going on there?
Oh my God. So here's and we had quite a conversation with this at Coffee Clutch before the show. And, you sit down now, all these rule changes and all that stuff, and I like it, to be honest with you. I think it's great because it's like really forces the transparency of the transaction of who's actually paying for what. So the Justice Department and all these lawsuits, the result of which is they want the buyer to pay their own agent and the seller to pay their agent. And if that is facilitated through the purchase agreement and through, whatever, takes place through that, that's all well and good. But they just want people to understand who's paying for what service.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways, just like with closing costs, Kelvin, if a buyer needs to finance some closing costs because they don't maybe have the cash, they'll put it in the purchase agreement and then have the $8,000 or $10,000 or 3% or whatever the number is go towards their closing costs.
Yep.
Right? So the offer is higher than it would be theoretically without that. Okay?
Correct.
Right. So they're financing the closing costs. Well, the same thing now is happening frequently on almost every case with the buyer's broker. So the buyer doesn't necessarily have their 2% or 3% or 2.5% or whatever the number is to pay their buyer broker, their agent. So they're financing it in the purchase agreement much in the same way that they finance closing costs.
Okay.
Well, 3 times this week I've had a problem with sellers who are saying, I don't want to pay. Why would I be paying the buyer's agent? Even though at the time of listing we had this conversation about that's a common thing and that you're going to see that now. It used to be that we would charge you theoretically 6% and half would go to this agent over here and you paid your 6% and it didn't matter. You didn't care how I spent it. It's going to cost you 6%. Now it's like, well, we have to say exactly what's going to stay with our brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say, okay, 3% is going to stay with our brokerage, but 3% is going to go out to the other side. And then we show it separately now on their estimated expense worksheet so that they can see it. Okay, at the time of listing, everybody's all good with it. When the offer comes in and they see that on the purchase agreement asking for that money, and the offer is less than the asking price, and they're also asking for closing costs, and now you want me to pay the agent that produced this crappy offer to me, on top of that, there's a little irritation there. And so we're seeing some, 3 times this week I had that conversation with people, and they seem to forget about the conversation that we had a month ago when we went through the net sheet, and here's the net sheet, has it on there. See that? Remember that part?
Well, yeah, it's no different kind of than taxes, right? Like if you actually knew and actually paid attention to how much of your paycheck went to Uncle Sam or had to write, we've always talked about, best thing that could happen is we have to write a check for taxes every month.
Every time you got paid, you wrote a separate check to the IRS.
So this is what's happening on your side. They're seeing that dollar amount, and they realize that those are real dollars now coming out of their pocket to facilitate a low offer.
Right. And I was pointing, I'm changing my net sheet because I have a Excel spreadsheet that I use to calculate everything, and I show the percentage. They're asking for 2.7%, and then it groups the commissions as a total down at the bottom.
No.
He wanted to see it broken out. He said, I want to see the dollar amount.
Yep.
I want to know how many dollars are going to that other guy, and that becomes now the line 406 of the purchase agreement. On the counteroffer addendum to change line 406. So it'll go back now to that agent on the other side. And some of these agents out there still are not having that conversation with their buyer. So the buyer doesn't have the money. And they're saying, oh, no problem at all. We'll just put it on the purchase agreement. Well, you're going to start seeing, as you get a tougher market, property's been on the market longer, maybe have a couple of price reductions, 1 or 2, and then the offer comes in lower, and then they're asking for closing costs, and now on top of all that, you're asking me to pay your agent? That's becoming a rub for people. And it's full transparency. I love it because it's full transparency of who's getting paid and how is that money being facilitated through the transaction. And at the end of the day, it's just like, look at the bottom line.
So you're still working on those deals, TBD, on how everything shakes out, or did you get them done?
No, No, both of them
Kind of stalled out.
One of them's still kind of out there in cyberspace because people are sitting now with their arms folded.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hesitancy in the market right now. Like
Very
I'm
much so.
experiencing a lot of fence sitters that people are just kind of waiting.
Yep.
There's been a lot of news media on interest rates and kind of where they're at. The misconception that with the reduction, half a point with the Fed, that that just chopped off a half a point for overall mortgage interest rates, and that's just not the case.
And then rates went up.
Quite the opposite, actually. I think rates have kind of ticked up over
Yep.
the last couple of weeks pretty consistently. So to find out more about the real estate market and what is actually going on out there, you can give us a call anytime at 612-627-8000. That number again is 612-627-8000, and you can always log on to our website, hittnergroup.com, Hittner Group.com. There you can check your home value, search for properties, all online at hittnergroup.com, and I'll give you the phone number one more time, 612-627-8000, and we'll be right back.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. The two Keiths, Keith and Calvin. Hittnergroup.com, 612-627-8000. That's 612-627-8000. Give us a ring-a-ling-a-ling. We're happy to have a chat with you about what's going on in the real estate market. If you're thinking about making a move either now or sometime next spring, it's time to get crack-a-lackin'. Get planning, get things lined up. It takes longer than you think sometimes to get things ready to go. Got Eric Everson in the studio, and we are talking about moving. Have you seen, give your contact information first of all, because I always forget about it.
Action Moving, website actionmoving.com, main number 952-894-8888.
So where do you see the most at? First of all, just where is most of the activity now? Is it local moves, national moves, and are you seeing any international activity?
Yeah, so international activity, we had a little uptick right after borders started opening up a little bit. That has since
opening up. I thought the border was wide open.
Ours was. You didn't need a mover for that. You just walk across.
Just walk across.
Yeah. But no, as other countries opened up,
Okay.
people to be able to move in and out, we saw an uptick there. But that's kind of staved off a little bit. There hasn't been a strong international market right now.
Just because I'm curious,
Yeah.
internationally, where are people going? Like, people literally move internationally?
Yeah, actually.
And to where?
Oh, well, surprisingly, in the last few months, have moved a lot of people to Israel.
To Israel.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of people from the metro area going to Israel. So I've seen some of that. Otherwise, it's a lot of Department of State and government workers that are all over the world. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
Military?
Anywhere, yeah. Military or a Department of State. So they're going a little bit everywhere, but that's, I would say, pretty normal activity,
Mhm.
not an uptick or downtick
Okay.
there. Yeah. But general consumers, I would say it's pretty on the lower end right now. A lot of our activity, so we're kind of on the tail end of the summer busier season. This summer wasn't as busy as we would have hoped. But the fall market seems to be ticking up a little bit, so we've been doing some more activity. Plus, I mean, who doesn't love to move in the fall, right? I mean, it's the
Perfect
guys
timing.
move faster, the air's crisp, they're not sweating all over your sofas. And, all
How
that.
about in terms of the state activity, people moving out of state or into the state?
A little both. I would say right now, so typically we have a lot of people moving to the south this time of year. They kind of plan that before the winter season comes if they're going to do that transition. But as of recently, I've seen a lot of people that have moved to the south a few years ago that are now moving back. I've had a lot of that activity. And I think in big part that's because so many people did move down to those areas.
During COVID?
Yeah, they didn't like the influx, and now it's so busy, down there that they're like,
And down there means, is it Texas, Florida,
for
Vegas?
for this area, it's southwest, southeast. So it's basically Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, and then Arizona, a little bit of New Mexico, but mostly Arizona.
Okay. Did Carolinas get much? Do you move
Not
people
as
there?
much. I do move some people there, but not as much as I would say Florida and Tennessee were the bigger ones.
Tennessee, really? Have you been to Tennessee?
I have been. Well, we drove down there and we got a smoker.
Okay.
Came back. What do you know about, or what do you with people with storage? I'm curious because you see, I drive by the place where we take Sheila's pink car in like every other week to be repaired, and I drive by this place and it's got all these containers. I can't even remember the name of it. I don't know what it is, but they got these containers piled up all over, and they're moving like, drop off in your driveway filled up with stuff, and they take it back, and apparently they just pile it out in the parking lot.
Yep.
What that seems to me like that's not a good thing.
It's not climate controlled, so I mean, I wouldn't put any of your
Good stuff.
furniture in there. Yeah.
So don't put any furniture in there, which is probably exactly what you're doing.
Some people, whatever you put in your garage, fine, but I wouldn't put my furniture out there. And even if it's not good furniture, like if it's presswood, that stuff's really susceptible to increase in moisture in the air, and it swells and it becomes worthless.
So if I'm going to put stuff in storage and I call you, because then you're going to take it and put it in the warehouse, right?
Yep.
Do I have to wrap it? Should I be wrapping it like in poly or anything like that? Or what do you recommend for storing things? Like we're working with a customer now who's we're getting his house ready to sell, and he's got stuff, and he wants to put it in storage, and they want to go down south, and then they want to find a place, maybe rent a place and all that, and then when they find their place down there, then call you and have you ship it down there.
Yeah.
What prep should they be doing on that?
I would say first off, even early in the game, before you even do your decluttering process, give us a shout and have us come out and counsel you a little bit on that, because based on your situation, we might have a really good plan that we can present to you. And one of the things, especially if you're moving interstate and you're going to put stuff in storage, so if you move it yourself, let's say to a mini storage, fine. But one thing to keep in mind is that when we ship it interstate, we're going to bring in a very large semi. So it needs to be accessible. If it's not, you add additional costs later, right?
Right.
Also, then
so you're saying
loading.
getting it from that mini storage is going to be nearly impossible.
It can be. A lot of them are. Or even if they are accessible, sometimes those property managers do not want
the
semis
trucks coming in.
Yeah. So then you have that. Then also
so you're double moving it out.
Yeah.
You're moving
double
it in.
moving it.
Now you're moving it. You're loading in the truck again. Yeah. Then you're delivering it. So you're handling it a lot more times. Where when we bring it into our facility, bringing it into indoor climate controlled, but it's also dock accessible, and we put it in containers that then we can send those down even and not have to load, unload so many times, saving the handling of your goods. And also saving you money in the long run, because now you know all the different particulars that could add up to costs later that you're not thinking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about accessibility now? So now I pack up on my stuff, and you take it off to your warehouse. And I thought, boy, that's good. Got that handled. I got to take off, and it's like, oh crap! I packed this item and I shouldn't have.
Right.
Can I get in there and rifle through my stuff, or what's the accessibility?
You can, but it's not as easy as like a self-storage unit where you just lift up the gate and dig through it. So what we do is we try to make a plan for that, because it's really designed for more climate controlled perm storage, meaning we can bring a vault down, we can open it up for you and let you dig through, but there's a cost and time, and it's not as easy as just going any hour of the day and opening up your garage door. So.
Do you find people forget about their pods with you?
Well, they don't forget, but they forget what they had in there, right?
Okay.
So they store it for a year, and then we go out and deliver it, and they're like, I don't even want all this.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's similarly when you're packing up to move, and you have those couple boxes that sit there for 2 years. I don't even know what's
and that's another thing. So, okay, obviously, I prefer if you store everything, right? That's more revenue for us. But when I am out on site, a lot of times people are asking these questions, and I'm giving them straight answers. I'm like, hey, if you really don't think you're going to use this or want this or need this later, or your kids don't want it, let's get rid of it now.
Yeah.
Don't move it.
Is there items that you would say, we can't store that?
Flammables, nothing living. No perishables.
No fish.
Yeah, we've had cats try to get into storage a few times. Climb up into somebody's sofa and get stretch wrapped.
Yeah.
Oh God.
No apples.
No apples.
That's fine. Later.
What if they have like I have a lawnmower, or if I have a car or a motorcycle or something like that? How do you deal with that?
So anything that has flammable liquids in it, like a mower or whatever, we would ask you to just drain them or run them out.
Okay.
Which, if you're going to put in storage, you want to anyway, because they'll turn into turpentine.
Sure.
If it's a self-driving thing, like an automobile or maybe a riding mower, you can leave a small portion of fuel in there, but even then, we kind of tell you not to, just because, again, the gas can go bad if you're storing it for a long period of time.
Seafoam it or whatever.
Yeah, so that definitely. Yeah, put that in there and then run it out. So if there's anything left in the hoses or whatever, that's going to be stale.
So you can store those items.
We can store them. Cars, we typically don't store them inside the warehouse because, you don't want the fire risk and that sort of thing. But we do have trailers. We can store them enclosed.
Okay, so they're
Or we
still
can
enclosed.
Yeah, or we can store them out on the lot. There's a price difference to that. Yeah.
Depending on if it's your vintage classic car or if it's your son's
We've had
jalopy.
one vintage Corvette sitting on a trailer for like 12 years.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
And they just pay every month.
Yeah.
You send them a bill, and they say thank you.
It's
Crazy.
a beautiful Corvette, too.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Keith, maybe you
How
wanna buy
people-
that.
Of course, yeah. I could use a car.
Yeah, need another car.
Another car.
What is your worst thing that you experience when you go into somebody's house? Is like you walk into the house or even a commercial thing and go, oh my God, I was hoping I wouldn't see this.
You mean like a hoarder situation?
Yeah, or just whatever.
Yeah, I encounter those. It's really, it's those situations where somebody's lived there for like 30 years. The stuff's piled up, and it's not so much the stuff, but it's like filthy. Like they have animals that have
Creeped in.
Yeah, creeped in, and they're living there. There's one that comes to mind though that was interesting. It was a big mansion on Lake Minnetonka, right? And it was a huge house. And we walked in. Well, it had been not abandoned, but the homeowner had moved to another house. They were elderly and kept this one with all the stuff in it. Well, the raccoons had taken over to the point like there was holes in the ceiling, and
my God.
we couldn't move anything out of this house.
We're going to have to break, but it's good that you guys are located then in Burnsville. Your warehouse is in Burnsville near the dump because you can just dump things right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Actionmoving.com. You can get a hold of them there online. You can get a hold of us online at hittnergroup.com. This is Real Estate Chalk Talk. Give us a call, 612-627-8000.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. HittnerGroup.com, 612-627-8000, 612-627-8000. Give us a ring-a-ling-a-ling. We'll chat about the real estate market with you. What's going on? Lots going on. Eric Everson's in the studio.
I have a question before you get into that.
Before I launch?
Yep. So where are you moving? You do a lot of just metro moves, right? Would that be the majority of your business, or do you think the majority is just across the United States?
Since pandemic, it has been majority.
Is local.
Is local.
Okay.
Since the pandemic.
But before that, it was probably half and half.
Okay. So when you're moving just inside of Minnesota, where are people moving from? Do you see people going west suburbs, east suburbs, south, north? Where is it a mixed, or is it not?
It's during the pandemic, it was like out of the metro, right?
Okay.
Now it's kind of like all over the place.
Really?
Yeah. I even had like one, where Montgomery is down. Yep. Okay. Montgomery to Duluth.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
To Duluth. Who'd ever want to live there?
People who like antiques.
People who like antiques?
Yeah, well, like
a lot of antiquing going on?
Yeah, well, he's got like, he's a picker, so he's got all this unique stuff.
Oh, is that
you
individual?
You ever see the little roadside stands and stuff up there? I'm sure he's going to sell stuff up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So do you see people going to like the Mankato's, Rochester, Duluth, St. Cloud, those bigger
We move a lot of physicians.
Okay.
So all those areas are popular.
Okay.
Both, into the St. Cloud area, Rochester area.
What about people moving back into the city? Are you seeing anybody? You said during the pandemic everybody went out. Are you seeing people coming back into Minneapolis, St. Paul, or
not as much?
Or they just move their own stuff?
I see people moving within the metro, but
Okay.
not as much from out to in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What's the weirdest situation? When we went out to break, you were talking about the raccoon house. And we didn't quite finish up with that story. So you said that the house was infested with raccoons.
Yeah, it was terrible. Like, it was biohazard type stuff. Like, really nothing could be moved. And, of course, the lady wanted it all.
Oh, of course.
Was she living there with the raccoon?
No, she had moved down the lake in another house. And this
never went
there
back
for
and
9
checked?
years. Yeah.
What?
She was, like, in her 90s.
I know, but I still don't understand the money. Because I just don't.
I don't think money was an issue.
Yeah,
I know.
For some people, Calvin, money is not. The issue.
I'm not
You
that
understand
person.
that? Yeah.
It was all sentimental.
Yeah. All right. So, what's the weirdest thing you've ever moved?
Okay, so I have a client that I've moved probably a dozen times, and she was
A dozen?
over the years, yeah.
Wow.
But the last
That's a
time
lot.
I moved her was probably 6-7 years before the pandemic, and she moved back to Canada where she was from. And she was some sort of like a psychologist, doctor, physician, whatever. But she liked.
She had attachment issues. That's why she moved all the time.
No, she for work,
Okay.
really. But she was a collector of instruments from
Oh.
around the world, right? So she had this collection. The last time I moved her, it was probably 700 pieces,
Wow.
including like 7 pianos in her house.
Jeez.
Well, one of her pieces was I
It's
found
like
was
stacked on top of each other.
Yeah,
Like-
how do you
yeah.
do that?
Yeah,
Open
but
in the
big
corner.
house.
the whole
I don't-
house was a museum of
I
collection.
just don't
of instruments.
understand so much.
But one of the instruments that she had that I thought was so fascinating, she told me about, was it was in this little glass box like this, right? And it was a tiny flute, probably about this size.
A flute.
A flute.
A
And it
flute,
was
but a miniature.
More like a
miniature.
whistle.
Miniature flute, yeah, almost like a whistle. But
Okay.
it was carved out of the femur bone of a child that had passed away. This island community in the middle of nowhere. It's part of their religious practice that if a child dies,
You carve up.
they carve the femur bone and turn it into a flute, and they play it at the funeral to release the spirit of the child.
How interesting.
And she had it. Well, you can't just ship a human
Yeah.
bone across borders, so we had to deal with that. But
Oh.
but it's so interesting, just culturally. seeing
Time
the
out. Hold on.
piece.
Hold on. You could literally play this little miniature flute.
Well, I couldn't, but
No.
somebody could.
Really?
Yeah. But can you think of it's
That's
just
fascinating.
so culturally different?
I want to see Junior try to play that.
Well,
song.
you mean you can't ship a human bone across like?
Well, yeah,
Oh, that's a bone. We can't
she had.
put it in her pocket.
Yeah, you can't. No, you have to have a lot of paperwork. Let's say
Mhm.
that.
Why? Who would know?
Exactly. That's what
Nobody.
I'm saying.
Yeah,
If
is
you
there
just,
a
like, put it in
bone?
your
Is there a
pocket and put it
bone
somewhere.
police that check? I mean, there's
Well,
enough
honestly-
drugs and all this stuff going across
I
that.
I think that's how she's moved it so many times. 'cause
Yeah. She
nobody-
just calls it a flute.
Yeah.
They don't call it a bone.
Yeah. But it might look like ivory or something. So
mhm.
she has to bring it up to me, so at least we can figure out the best way.
Right.
Wow.
But yeah, isn't that unique?
That is unique.
And always into obviously huge homes, right?
Yeah, she had a very big house.
To have that many.
And I moved her
pianos and
so
all.
many times, and every time I move her, she had more instruments.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking every kind of thing you can imagine: drums, guitars, band, flutes, woodwinds. I mean, all this unique stuff. It was really cool.
Huh.
Yeah, just fascinating. to me.
Mhm.
And 7 different pianos, from big ones to little ones to ones maybe the size of this table. And
Really?
yeah,
What's the worst,
Fascinating.
the most disastrous thing? Is it, do you do more commercial or more residential?
I'd say more residential overall. Yeah.
And you were doing museums for a while. Is that
Yep.
still working?
Yeah,
Or
we
you-
still do museums. They, the pandemic kind of messed up with their thing too, so their activity isn't as much as it used to be. But I imagine that'll be coming back as they produce more exhibits and stuff. Because they're kind of on a lag. Everything got held up, and
Mhm.
so
Talk-
now they're rotating it.
Are you done?
Yeah.
I got another question.
All right.
Talk about the dock worker strike. How
Yeah,
do you
absolutely.
anticipate
Good.
that impacting what's happening in your world? And we'll talk about it next segment
Yeah,
as
so-
well. But
Things like that. What really catches off guard is everything that was in transit coming into port before they kind of knew that it was coming down. So all of the shipments that have been arranged like the last month and a half, 2 months, right? Now we know about it, right? So everything's getting steered and different.
Diverted.
But you know what it does, like for right now, is when I'm quoting a client and we're talking to forwarders, they're doing different ports and different routes, and that can impact expenses and timing. So
Timing is the main, because I imagine now if you divert 50% of the port activity
Mm-hmm.
to the remaining 50%, they get backlogged.
Yep.
And it takes a long time to get those ships unloaded.
Exactly. So we would tell somebody, okay, if you're trying to get it there by like the first of the year, we might want to ship it a couple weeks earlier.
Mm-hmm. How long does it usually take to bring something like from here to Europe or Europe to here?
Here to Europe's usually like 6 to 8 weeks, port to port typically, and then you would add another week or two at each end to kind of get it through customs and get it delivered out to wherever they are, depending on how far inland they are.
Any activity going to South America or, like in when our continents? up
There
and down?
is, but not as much as I've seen in the past. I used to see a lot of researchers and stuff going to that part of the world. Right now, it's all been military, Department of State, government stuff that we've been doing. I haven't seen a whole lot of COD stuff going to those areas.
interesting. So the dock workers being on strike is just delaying the transit of those materials, and the expense has gone up.
Yep.
Okay.
And what it does is it's like the airline. You're flying from here to LA. Well, LA airport shuts down, so now you got to fly to another airport, and that changes the cost of your flight. That changes. Okay, now I got to rent a car, and all those logistics.
Yeah. What's happened with costs for just general moving in general over, since the pandemic forward? Have prices gone up, down, leveled out?
They went up dramatically during the pandemic.
Okay.
Then they kind of staved off. Now we're starting to see them drop just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the inflation, how everything went up, and now it's at that level, but it's not going up anymore, that type of thing?
And it's driven by mostly labor.
Okay.
But now the fuel
I was just
kind
going
of
to say
stabilized, so
fuel cost.
that helps a little bit because we index that. So every month there's a percentage that's added for fuel that's indexed,
Okay.
and so those rates have stayed pretty stable for a while, and they're starting to drop a little bit. So that's actually good for the consumer.
Okay.
So move that cost savings through.
Yeah. We just charge the index. Almost every major van line's tariffs are built with the index in it. It's funny because we have an insurance index in there for like the insurance on the truck and the trailer and
That's
So-
going up.
Well, a long time ago, I guess the insurance markets were super volatile, so they actually put that in there as an index. Well, like in my time, I've never seen that index change ever because I guess once that insurance market stabilized,
It just
it's
stayed the
just
same.
always been the same percent. I've never seen it change, but at some point there was that, and so they put it in there. So it's funny. I get a lot of questions about that.
What pressure do you guys get for the Green New Deal in terms of converting your fleet to energy efficiency or electric vehicles or local electrics? Are you guys looking at any of that as a company or?
Yeah, we're always so Atlas Van Lines, which we're an agent for. We're very much on top of the technology game, just all around. With that sort of thing, number one, of course, the leader is California, right? So they drive everything, and what we've seen there is they've really put some things in place to save on fuel and carbon emissions and that sort of thing. And what it did initially is it drove all the drivers to basically not go into California.
Right.
It's too expensive, right? So prices went up through the roof in California. They were limited on the number of operators that could go there. Well, now we're starting to catch up a little bit. Some of the operators are like, okay, well, it's worth it to me to go to California. So they invest that and they get a little bit more money. And so now we're starting to catch up and it's becoming more cost effective, right? Also, the manufacturers are making rigs that are more fuel efficient. So drivers are happy to jump on that as long as it doesn't cost too much.
Right.
So not full electric quite yet.
Not yet, but
Nope.
it's going to come probably, or if not, it'll be just piloted by some AI.
Thanks for coming in, Eric. We appreciate you. Actionmoving.com. Log on to our website, hittnergroup.com. This is Real Estate Chalk Talk.
Hey there, welcome back to the program. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. The money segment of the big program. Calvin Kamick, ladies and gentlemen, 651-231-2500. For the great rates and the low prices.
Well, give me a happy October.
Happy October is right.
Halloween, you're probably thinking through already, like, what do I wear?
What am I going to wear? I'm super
What's going
stressed out
on?
about it.
Yeah.
It's very
I don't know what I'm
games.
going to be for Halloween.
No.
I'm thinking about it. I don't know.
Should be a mentally stable individual. Nobody will recognize you.
That's true. I think I'm going to do that.
That's great.
I think I'm going to do that. Maybe get some Einstein here.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Huh?
Leonard.
Give me a market update real quick, because in the first segment you didn't even hit on it. Like
Market update. Yeah, we didn't really.
No.
7,700 homes on the market.
Okay.
78 last week, so it's trickled down just a little bit. Had 868 homes move through new pendings this week, 868, 812 last week. That's 712 the year before, so up just a tick. Total sales, total listings coming on the market this year were 38,000. Total listings last year, 35,000.
Okay.
Total solds this year, 25,700. Total solds last year, 25,400. So we actually have a few more properties moved through this year than last year. Days on market are definitely increasing.
what are you seeing?
We got a 3 months worth of inventory on the market
Wow.
now. So we're seeing that our days on market are running about 32 days for the ones that appended
Okay.
this time, and then you've got other ones that are on the market waiting for that second price reduction, and then they are running around 60 days. Not uncommon to see a 90-day.
Yeah, I was going to see, what are you seeing on the outside? What are the outliers on
Not
that?
uncommon to see 90 days I ran some market in Woodbury this week, and there was a couple that had triple digits days on markets in front of them, and so those are homes that are probably obviously overpriced for the condition, and maybe would be priced correctly if they were in good condition.
Yeah.
There seems to be that message. It seems to be hard to deliver to people.
Are you guys changing your messaging right now because of what you're seeing in the market when you're setting a price for that listing, and then the expectation of how quickly we're going to move the property,
Yeah,
Junior?
for sure. Yeah, the conversation up front is, I mean, you're going to talk about the market regardless of the scenario you're in, and the reality is things are taking a little bit longer. People are a little more hesitant. They're being a little bit more picky and choosy. I think motivations play a giant factor. There's not a lot of motivation in the market depending on the price point. You know, if your elective move, if you are moving up because you want a pool or 4 beds up or a 3-car garage, which does happen. It's not as much as it was a few years ago, but it is still happening. Those people are not as motivated, let's say, to, get whatever the interest rates are. What are the interest rates now?
6.25.
Yeah, so to saddle up at 6.25, certainly it's better than 7.5. But still, that's a much more hesitant situation for a buyer. And because things are slower, and because of the time of year it is presently, you have to sell your backup house. We know that that's going to take a little bit longer. So going in non-contingent is also a hesitancy point for people,
right?
Because the conversation surrounding the backup house is different than it was a few years ago too. It's not going to sell in 5 minutes. Things are going to take a little bit longer. That's the expectation. Yeah. So having reserves to hold on to your other house leading into the winter, a lot of those people are just going to wait until a better time of year.
Because for a while we would just say, when you're, if you're trying to sell your house, like, okay, buy your new one first. That's
no
okay.
Problem. Yep.
Put it out, push your closing date out 60 days, and we'll get yours ready, and we'll put it on. We'll load that.
We'll use your backup money, house money, and that whole kind of dance.
Yeah, that was the dance.
That whole dance that you get into of timing the backup house sale to coincide with the purchase. It's almost like people want to be straight up contingent on the sale of their house, which is appropriate. I understand that. Because the market's different.
Right, because we are taking...
You have to work with the market you have. Understanding different markets as a real estate agent is super important for that reason. If you're an inexperienced real estate agent and you come in and you think everything's just going to be smooth as pie.
Well, when the last home they sold was like 18 months ago, and they think now it's still the same. I mean, you got to work with people that know what the hell they're doing.
And the psyche of sellers, many of them are thinking it's 18 months ago.
Right.
And they have that kind of buried in that their thing is that, well, we can put anything on the market and it's just going to fly off the shelf with multiple offers. And it's like, that ship has sailed. So Keith is right. You eat the meal that's on the table, and right now it's a different meal than it was a couple of years ago, for sure. And you have to, about half my business is estate sales.
Right.
Probate. And they're as-is sales. Well, as-is doesn't mean that you can just have it be a pile of junk.
Right.
With a lot of repairs that are, deferred maintenance and all that stuff. That as-is means that, that the buyer that's going to accept it in its as-is condition, but you can improve that condition before you put it on the market. And sometimes with not doing too much and get a lot more value out of it, if you just do a few little things to make it more attractive to people. Because the buyer coming in too, if they've got to sell their house, and this is across all price points, if they have to sell their house, they have to make obviously some improvements on their property. So they're spending money there, and now they're going to buy this new house, quote unquote, that maybe has a better floor plan for them and meets their lifestyle a little bit better, but it needs 5 things that are that have dollar signs in front of them. Well, imagine if they didn't have dollar signs in front of them. Imagine if those 5 things had all been done. The price is a little bit higher. Now that can go into their mortgage, and it's all done.
Let's get into real quick headlines. Real quick, there's a different conversation I want to have, but headlines this past week in the mortgage world: mortgage rates near 1-month highs, but still pretty great. That's one of the headlines. So rates are still okay, but they are higher than they've been ever since the Fed announced. FYI, everybody.
Yeah, the big reduction.
It's kind of funny. Wednesday market movement raises stakes for Friday. We have jobs numbers coming out. Fairly pronounced reaction to ADP data. So we'll kind of see what happens. The status right now, like for Thursday when we're recording this, is we're locking everybody up prior to tomorrow's jobs report. Because of what they anticipate. So that's good. So what are we busy with? We're seeing some. I think with what's happening in the world right now, you have the wars going on, Iran attacking Israel. We're seeing a lot of things being very unstable in the world, so that's a flight to quality typically. So I think that may help our rates a little bit. The union, obviously, we've talked about in the last segments, the election coming up. I think there's just a lot of uncertainty going on, so I think we're going to see rates maintain. I anticipate that by probably end of January, February, our hope is that we'll be mid fives. So we see this downward pressure.
Been hearing that for a couple of years.
Yeah, well, I think hang on.
All the experts have been saying.
Yeah, 2027, I'm going to be right on. Probably. So,
yeah, but that kind of ball has started rolling down the hill, though, right?
Yep, it has a little bit. So we anticipate that coming. And we had a good conversation yesterday with who my boss is, and just talking about, okay, if the Democrats win, Republicans win, and he's saying just take one segment, housing. What happens with Republicans, what happens with Democrats, and he's like, well, if Democrats win, he said, you're going to maintain all these programs that exist right now and then layer on top a federal program. We have 54 different grant programs in the state of Minnesota. Now we're going to add on federal grant programs as well, right? So not really needed. We don't even take advantage always, and the guidelines are so restrictive that you can't get in, but that will add to it. They'll leave all these loan level price adjustments where basically good credit folks are actually supplementing poor credit folks to get everybody to be about equal. A lot of that they say would go away if Republicans got in the presidency. So they he's kind of like, in just this segment, it probably tips more Democrat for the first 12 months, and then after that, because everybody spends money like drunken sailors.
But then did he consider the fact that all the Trump tax reductions would go away, and now people have less money to spend, so that impacts housing.
Yep, absolutely. He was just talking about the grants, the loan level price adjustments, all of those pieces. On the Republican side, he said after 12 months, they'll probably get rid of some of that. If you have great credit, you should be rewarded for managing your money well. So some of that stuff will go away, and longer term tends to be a little bit more fiscally responsible, and probably see tax breaks that you actually puts more money in the pockets of the consumer so they can do things too. And lower regulation, especially for home builders, lowering regulation. We've had builders in here, and you're just talking about all the regulation these guys face. If you could eliminate that, you could bring down the cost of housing. Right. Versus, just having to give away free money, which is your tax money, all of our tax dollars. So
spend $50,000 before you put a shovel in the ground.
Right. So it was a really robust conversation, a lot of fun. But if you're looking at refinancing right now, we're doing a lot of refinances. We have a home equity loan closed end second. If you have a low interest rate on your first but need some cash out, that's an option for us as well. So just give me a call. Let's have a conversation if you want to kind of review your financials. 651-231-2500.
651-231-2500. Give Calvin a ring-a-ling and go through that. You might be able to pay off some high-priced credit cards with a lower interest on a second mortgage, or refinance the whole package and get that taken care of. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk. We'll see you next week.